Welcome to Front Office Pros. We are a week away from the NFL draft, and landing spots for these prospects will be a huge factor in how successful they will be early on in their career. For this video, we'll be discussing the most ideal, realistic landing spots for the top 5 quarterback prospects. Before we get started, we are a new channel, so if you enjoy this content, we ask you to smash that like button to show your support for our channel.
Hike!
Bryce Young is considered the top quarterback prospect in this draft class, and current Vegas odds have him going number 1 to the Carolina Panthers. Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for quarterback Bryce Young?
Yeah, I know everyone has already got, Bryce Young on the Carolina Panthers already and expect him to be there. But, I think he'd actually be a great fit for the Houston Texans. They got Laramie Tunsil, left tackle, decent offensive line. They got Slowick, who came over as OC, who's coming over for the 49ers, like D'Amico Ryans. Expect them to have that, run heavy, play action style offense, which I think could cater to Bryce Young really well. And then, he doesn't have a lot of weapons to throw to, but I actually think that could allow him to use his athleticism more on the play action and help him, with those off script plays that he likes to go to as well. And then, they got Case Keenum as a backup who's could be a pretty good mentor for him as well.
Yeah, for me, I actually like him in the Carolina Panthers. I think that coaching staff that they have built around in Carolina is one of the best out there that I've actually seen probably in a long time for a first-time coaching staff coming together with Josh McCown as a quarterback coach. You got Jim Caldwell as a senior assistant, and then you've got Frank Reich, who has done a really good job developing quarterbacks over his time. So I think Bryce Young coming in there, he's got a great offense around him. They drafted Ike Ekwonu to be that cornerstone left tackle, to be his blindside protector. You've also got decent wide receiver talent around him. You've got Adam Thielen and DJ Chark, who they signed in free agency. They also have some younger guys like Terrace Marshall and Laviska Shenault, and even Shi Smith. So time will tell to see if they'll be fits in Frank Reich's offense. And then they've got Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders will help take pressure off of Bryce Young if they have a good run game, allow for that play action. And then the one thing I will also make a comment, I'm not that worried about his size. I know you are one of those people who are, Joe. But those interdivision games that he'll have will be mostly in domes. New Orleans plays in a dome, and so does Atlanta. And then you've got Carolina with the warm weather. He's not going to really have to face the elements. And then you got Tampa as well, where he's not going to have to face elements most of the time. So I think it's a really good spot if he ends up getting drafted by the Panthers.
I'm not sure why his size and domes really matter, but I'm more so talking about from a durability standpoint and repeatedly taking hits. That's what concerns me. It's not just about the height with him. He's not very thick, and that's what concerns me. And he's not that heavy. Can he hold up over the time? He's similar stature to like a Kyler Murray, and we've already seen his durability issues. And honestly, those domes equals the turf, and we've already seen the turf tearing up guys' knees.
Well, I think from what I've heard, at least from other people, some like Bryce Young going to the Colts because of being in a dome and basically not having to deal with the elements. They think that takes away from that equation for him.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, either way, whoever goes to the Panthers is in a great spot. NFC South is not very quarterback heavy. And either way, whoever goes there is going to have a great chance to win.
CJ Stroud is considered the second best quarterback prospect in this draft class by most people. And there's much speculation that he could go number 1, or will he possibly be sliding? Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for CJ Stroud?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think CJ Stroud is a great fit with the Carolina Panthers. We'll see if he goes, number 1 or if they go with Bryce Young, but I think he'd be a great fit with Frank Reich. We've seen Frank Reich already coach the bigger pocket passers like a CJ Stroud. He went over to the Colts and Andrew Luck was there. Andrew Luck had a Pro Bowl season under Reich in 2018. They had Reich was there when Carson Wentz was an Eagle, who's a bigger guy as well. I just think the Panthers, as you mentioned, the weapons, Miles Sanders, the run game. I mean, it's the great place and a great roster for a rookie quarterback to have immediate success and some sustained success in the league. And I think that's exactly the type of situation that CJ Stroud needs. And, having Andy Dalton there to mentor him and kind of bounce ideas off of his luxury to have there in Carolina as well.
I think the best location for Stroud is the Colts. When it comes with Shane Steichen, the new head coach there, he helped Justin Herbert throw for the most passing touchdowns for a rookie. One thing that I also noticed about CJ Stroud is he played a lot out of the shotgun, and Shane Steichen and that offense in Philadelphia, they used the shotgun a ton. So I think it really is a nice mix for the two of them. Then you've got a good, cast of, receiver with Michael Pittman. You got Jonathan Taylor as running back and help take pressure off of Stroud. And you've got, offensive line pieces like Quentin Nelson, as one of the, best guards in the league. So for me, I think CJ Stroud going to the Colts makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that could make sense. I got a different quarterback that I think could be a good fit in the Indianapolis Colts. So, it'll be interesting to see if Stroud would last that long. I think if he doesn't end up going to the Panthers, I think it'd be really interesting if the Texans were to take CJ Stroud and then at 12 they take his teammate and Jackson Smith-Njigba, and the college teammates get to play in Houston.
Anthony Richardson is probably the hottest quarterback prospect since the combine after he tore it up. Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for Anthony Richardson?
See, now this is where I like for my Indianapolis Colts quarterback. Anthony Richardson, a guy that's just been flying up the boards, since the combine. Shane Steichen was in Philly last year with Jalen Hurts, and Anthony Richardson is a bigger guy like Jalen Hurts, has a lot of tools with his mobility and passing ability. Now, he definitely has to work on his accuracy. He's definitely inconsistent with that. But I think somebody like Steichen could definitely coach him up and get the best out of him and improve the accuracy issues that he has. They got decent offensive weapons with Michael Pittman and Pierce there, Jelani Woods at tight end. Obviously, you got Taylor at running back to lean on as well, along with a, really good offensive line. And then, Gardner Minshew, they could use as a bridge quarterback and allow Anthony Richardson to, sit behind him for possibly this upcoming year and just watch him play and learn underneath him and give him a little chance to develop so he's just not rushed right onto the field.
Before I go into my landing spot, I think it is interesting what you said about Anthony Richardson, possibly his best landing spot being the Indianapolis Colts. I wonder what Steichen's going to do, because you've seen Steichen be able to be very successful with a guy like Justin Herbert with the Chargers. And then you've seen him very successful with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. I think there's a decent possibility that the Colts will have the opportunity to draft either Stroud or Richardson if the Texans end up passing on a quarterback and taking Will Anderson, like some of the rumors are suggesting. Then that third spot for the Cardinals is up for grabs, and the Colts could swoop in and get the guy they want. So I'm very curious if this situation does arise, which direction Steichen goes. Does he go the more Jalen Hurts type of style quarterback, or does he go more the Herbert style type of quarterback?
Yeah, that will be interesting. Despite the rumors, I think the Texans are going with a quarterback at 2. That's what I think. I mean, I saw Rappaport come on to the Pat McAfee this afternoon, and he fully expects that. And I think I think with D'Amico Ryans there, and they got 2 picks in the first round. Why not try to get your quarterback and get him right at 2?
So my ideal landing spot for Anthony Richardson is the Detroit Lions. And to me, this is like a dreamy type of land spot for him. The negatives with him is obviously the completion percentage, through 54% completion percentage, and only has played 1 full season in college football. So you have the likes of like a Josh Allen, who he is kind of compared to often, that he was able to fix those issues. He had a 56% completion percentage at Wyoming for the 2 years he played at Wyoming. So the question will be, can that get fixed? Obviously, he has all the athleticism that you'd want in a quarterback. many people expect for him to be somewhat of a project and needing a year. So if that does happen, he goes to Detroit, he is able to wait behind Jared Goff. And the other knock that people will say about him is that he has a hard time progressing through his reads, and that the Florida offense really allowed him to, not make many reads to be able to make the plays. Well, if he's in Detroit, he's got guys like Jameson Williams who could blow by defensive backs and get an easy touchdown on a fly pattern and just drop it in the breadbasket, as we saw some of those throws at the combine by Richardson. Or you got guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown who create great separation, and he could do the one read to St. Brown and he creates that separation. He just throws it right to him. So you've got players on that offense that are extremely dynamic that can help Richardson. Also, I do believe in that coaching staff with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. So I think at the end of the day, I think it could be a really good place for him.
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, if he makes it that far or the Lions come up to get him, I mean, that's it would be a really interesting spot, like you mentioned, young offense coordinator Ben Johnson coming back to the team. Jared Goff is there, and the weapons he'd be fortunate to play with, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, and the run game that they have and everything. It definitely would be an interesting spot for him.
Will Levis could go in the first round, but there's been much debate between his play in 2022 versus 2021 and his recent social media posts. So, Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for Will Levis?
Yeah, for Will Levis, I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. I like the spot for him. He played a pro system with Kentucky, and I think he could merge well with Josh McDaniels likes to do. For now they got Josh Jacobs there in the run game, which could help in the, with play action game. It should help with, him using his athleticism and mobility. And then, they got Jimmy G there for, on a 2-year deal, and, they could get out of it after a 1-year deal, but they at least have him there to use as a bridge if they need to. Levis could be a potential, project, might need to sit a year. So definitely would allow them to do that. And, Levis wouldn't have to start right away. It takes kind of the pressure off of him there. And, then you got the offensive weapons. I mentioned Josh Jacobs in that run game. You've got, the likes of Devontae Adams there. We'll see if Renfrow gets moved or not, but they just signed Jacoby Myers, and, they just brought in a couple of tight ends there as well. So I think the Raiders would be a really interesting situation for Levis.
So my ideal landing spot for Will Levis is the Washington Commanders. Now, I know there's been much conversation about how they're comfortable keeping Sam Howell, but I sort of expect a slide for Will Levis during the draft, or possibly the Commanders could trade up for him. It could be a combination of both, but I think his game is predicated on play action and RPO options. And when it comes to Eric Bieniemy, we saw how much they utilized RPO options with Patrick Mahomes. And the Washington Commanders just so happened to be one of the top play action teams last year. So I think it actually is a really nice fit for the quarterback and the team. I don't think that Sam Howell is the guy for them. They're still looking for their franchise quarterback. He can compete for the job. He wouldn't have to start for them. They could roll with Sam Howell and possibly have Will Levis take over during some time, maybe week 5, week 10 in the year. Also, he'd have a great supporting cast around him. He'd have the likes of Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, running back Brian Robinson, and Antonio Gibson. So I really like the landing spot of the Washington Commanders for Levis.
Yeah, I could see the Commanders being a landing spot. As you mentioned, I don't know if they truly believe in Sam Howell or not. Howell is a guy I liked last year in the draft, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do, and if they allow Bieniemy to target somebody that he likes and go with him.
So our last quarterback that we're going to be talking about is quarterback Hendon Hooker. He's been receiving buzz lately that some team could try to draft him at the end of round 1 or possibly trade up to get him. So, Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, I've got the Minnesota Vikings as his best landing spot. But it'd be really interesting to know what Hooker's like landings, like how high he could go in the draft if he didn't have the ACL injury last year. I mean, he's a guy that had a lot of buzz around him prior to when he was having such a great year. Um, and I think the injury is, allowing him to kind of slide down the list there. I just curious to know how the ranks would be if he didn't have the injury. But, I like him in the Vikings. Got Kevin O'Connell there, offensive-minded head coach, which is always nice for a young quarterback. And then you got Kirk Cousins, who's, he's just there for this current year. I don't think that, he's definitely not the long-term answer for the Vikings, and I don't think that they're going to bring him back after this year. So Hendon Hooker would be a nice option for them down the road, and he can sit behind and learn from Kirk Cousins. And then, talk about some good pieces on the offense. I mean, they got a good running game, and they got Justin Jefferson. They could use a couple more receivers after they let Thielen go, but they do have Osborne, who's an interesting guy. And then at tight end, they got TJ Hawkinson. So I'd really like this landing spot for Hooker and the Vikings.
So this is actually the first landing spot that you and I agree on. I agree. I think the Minnesota Vikings is the best landing spot for Hendon Hooker. He's been a starter now for several seasons with Virginia Tech before transferring to Tennessee. He is a little bit older, I believe. I think he's 25 years old, which, some teams may not like versus you have some younger prospects. When it comes to Hooker, though, before he tore his ACL, he was having a great season. Already thrown over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think, a lot of teams are going to really like how he takes care of the football and that touchdown interception ratio. What I like about him with the Vikings is Kirk Cousins is getting older. He's going to be 35 at the beginning of this season. So, I don't know how much longer Kirk Cousins has. And plus, the Vikings really haven't fully committed to him. They didn't give him these stopgap, like 1-year deals to keep him. And he just hasn't been able to perform when under the lights, under the big games. He ends up choking for them. So I think it's helpful because he's going to have to recover from the ACL like you were talking about, Joe. So he has a year to work behind Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell. And I think the Kevin O'Connell piece is really important because I think one of the knocks on Hooker will be that the offense didn't force him to make many reads. That Tennessee offense is very friendly for quarterbacks. It's almost sort of like an air raid offense. It's not a pro-style offense. So I think that year, even though he'd have to recover from the ACL, I think it would actually help him greatly just from studying the playbook and the game plan, and as he understands more about that offense. And like you said, great supporting cast around him with guys like Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. And I think it is a realistic landing spot for him to go to the Minnesota Vikings.
I think everyone in Dynasty would love it. You might not, you've got to wait a year for him to play, but once he's got the opportunity, hard to get a better landing spot there. Like you mentioned too, like giving him the chance to fully recover from that ACL injury as well.
And he's a little bit more athletic too. He's a great pocket passer, but he would definitely bring a lot more athleticism to the table than Kirk Cousins does right now.
Yeah. They just need somebody who will win those big games and can play in the prime time and win some playoff games. This is they need to upgrade their defense for sure, but if your defense is so, a good quarterback play can really make up for that. And that's just something Kirk Cousins just hasn't been clutch in the big games when they need him. And, Hooker could definitely potentially bring that for them.
So that concludes our best rookie quarterback landing spots for the top 5 quarterback prospects in the 2023 NFL Draft. If you enjoyed this content, we ask you to please like this video to show your support for our channel. Comment below on which landing spot is the best for these 5 rookie quarterback prospects, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also recently joined Apple and Spotify podcasts, so you can follow us there as well. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of this week as we discuss the best landing spots for running backs, receivers, tight ends, and IDPs. And until next time.